So this video is about initializing a data class in Python, and I'm just going to zoom in a tiny bit here. It's a weird one to say because the whole purpose of the data class is that you will not avoid the initialization of a class. So I'm just going to remove this for a sec. So basically, or in fact, I'll just do this. So if I define a class here in Python, it looks like this, and then I've got this initialization, but I don't want to do def double underscore init double underscore self and then a, and then self dot a equals a, and so forth, and I don't want this repr and so forth. So the whole convenience of the data class is to remove a tremendous amount of this. And I've spoken about this in previous videos, so we don't want that. But something comes along with this issue, which is we don't want to do this initialization, but then the initialization can be useful because, for example, we want to do some checks. And when I actually did the previous video on, and I did here, let's create a data class of a person, and it shows how we don't have to do all this initialization for the first name and then do like self dot first name equals first name, self dot second name equals second name, and so forth. The data class does this very conveniently for us. However, I wanted to do something like, well, let's just check our data types because we want to make sure that we've got the right thing. Or, for example, we want to make sure that the weight is above a certain weight or below a certain weight and so forth. So like, you're too heavy, you're too light, you're too tall, you're too short, something like that. So I went along and did all of that and created an instance. And one of the things that I could have done, or at least I had this somewhere over here, is after this C, I could have done C dot check types. So something like this. And if our type here wasn't a float, it would fail. So if the weight wasn't a float, then it would fail. So I could run this piece of code and it's perfectly fine. But if I took away this little dot, turning it from a float to an int, it throws this assertion error over here. And in fact, let me do assertion error and then something like needs to be a float. Right, so there we go. Our assertion error now, it says needs to be a float. So I'm just going to put a little s in there. So needs to be a float. But that's kind of like one way of doing it, and I didn't realize this, but I was just browsing through the old Stack Overflow to take a look, and somebody here has just mentioned something like this, that there is a post double underscore post underscore init double underscore function, and the purpose of this function is to kind of like behave like an init, but the whole point is we don't want an init. But it sort of like goes after the initialization, where it lets us do other things in the data class. So it's like an initialization for a data class. I'm like, well, hey, that's quite cool, because straight away it means that, let me just move this back to 70 and a point, or I could have put a 0.0 so that I don't have that assertion anymore. So basically, like, the use case is over here where we've got this same person class. In fact, I happen to create a person there. It looks relatively similar, but I can actually put it in there. So I have got it a separate version over here anyway, but let's just imagine, in fact I will do this, not just imagine it, but we could have a height and a float, a height and a weight. So let's just stick those two things in there. So there we go, we've got the height and the weight as well. Although I don't have what did I have here, a first name and a second name, so we got something slightly different, but nonetheless we've got this function here, this double underscore post underscore init underscore double underscore self, and that lets us effectively do some initializations in here, which is actually quite cool, because then we've got the data class structure, which is really nice, and we don't have to do this initialization where we say that self dot name equals name and self dot age equals age and self dot height equals height. We don't have any of that repetition. We've got the benefits of the repr as well, and we've got the benefits of this. And now I can actually add something in here, my own version of that little check, which is, I'm actually going to throw this assertion in here because it's slightly better than the if statement, but it doesn't matter. Assert something like weight. So let's just see our standard assertions up here. So something like, okay, I won't do that one, but assert weight, or sorry, self dot weight is less than 70, for example, and otherwise it's going to raise some kind of error like the person is too heavy. Now, over here I've got person, but this time the name, I've got a name and a float, but I actually need some extras here. And actually I'll throw this in as a freebie as well. You can put default values in here. So for example, I'll have a default value of float of the height being say 1 meter 70, and a default value of the float being say 80 kilograms there. Now I don't have to put in the height and the weight. I could do if I wanted to, but we can see it's got a default value. But automatically this person now is going to be, I'll put a little comment here about too heavy. So this person now is going to be a little bit too heavy, and their self.weight therefore won't be below 70 kilograms, and therefore it's going to raise this assertion error when we run it. So I'm going to just move this one out for a second on here. So I'm just going to comment this out for a second, and we can run this and we get this assertion error. And it says the person is too heavy, just as we wanted to have. So let's just go and correct that all now in there. So we will have to say that our height is, so height is, because I'm imagining it looks like a keyword thing here, so I have to specify what height is. So height is 1.70, and let's just go for weight. Weight, and we will say now that he's 65, so we don't get our assertion error anymore, and it all fits in very nicely. Now, the thing that was raised in this Stack Overflow question over here was that you can do all of this, and that's fantastic. But then what you can do straight afterwards is you can break the assertion. So I can go straight afterwards here with our fully working thing, and I can do this over here, p.age equals -20. And if I run this, it actually now hasn't broken the assertion error. And here we were checking for this assertion. And in particular, had I ever, and I'll highlight this, so we fixed our first assertion and everything's fine. And if I did put a -20 in here, great, it's going to catch it. And it's going to say field age cannot be negative. It's literally caught it over here. The field age can't be negative if self.age is less than 0. It won't let you have a negative age. And that worked exactly as we wanted. But the minute we do this, so we correct it over here, and I'll just comment this out, we run it, we're all fantastic and good to go. But somewhere later in the code, we do this. Our code actually lets it go through because the assertion check was only at the initialization. But nevertheless, there is a way around it. And this person was asking, well, hey, you know, lets you do this. And then somebody's answered it and said, well, you can do a whole bunch of other stuff and do a set, a setter and a getter and so forth, which is going back to, and I think he mentioned it somewhere, I'm not sure if I can find it, but basically what you're doing is the old method per se. And it's kind of like going back to like the set attributes and so forth. And we don't want to go to the old methods of set and get, but one alternative to doing this, like if you were to do it, is you could do this, which is, and I will move this up here, basically, which is you can actually just run your post init a second time. In theory. Now, you might want to argue that I want some sort of checker. And that was actually one of the answers that was down there, which is, you know, why not, if you're going to do all of that set and get and delete and validate and all the rest of it, well, why don't you just do a complete, and I wonder where it actually is on there, but somebody just suggests it. Why don't you do a complete like checking validator? Well, here I think it was something like here, like a validator in general, and just run your entire validator. And that's kind of like something that you might want to do if you were going to put in other attributes, and you did want to check the validation of it, there are two ways of doing it. One is this, and the other one, of course, is going straight back to something like this, some sort of validation thing here. So, and I don't know if there is actually a validate, so by all means put it in the comment section, but something like def double underscore validate double underscore, and then do some validation, whatever our validation is over here. So something like this. Now, I tend to kind of like try to stay away from the double underscores as much as possible. Just because, I don't know, you really want them to be the built-in methods. So I would do something like just, validate data. Validate underscore data, and that's kind of like clean enough. And then I could, of course, call my p.validate data, and I can do some data validation, and kind of it's not the world's best way, because the validation then hasn't been done at inception, but then you could never have done the validation at inception, so you're going to have to either do this post init again, or this validate data. Now, the reason I haven't suggested fully, or at least I've shown that you can do this validate data method as well, is because this post init, I reckon that you could actually call other things in here. So for example, in this post init, I could actually call self dot validate data. So that's one of the things that you could do. Now, maybe you could fit that in, but you might also be doing other things. So inside of the self, maybe I did want to do something like self dot hello equals hello world, and I've actually like run something else there, or created another attribute in here. And if we were to run this, let's just do that. Actually, it throws us a type error there. Validate, okay, because we need to have a self in here, I believe, for a start, possibly. And then here we will do just a return, I guess. And I guess p.validate data there. Do we have to running something over there? No. Yeah, of course, let's just fix our 20 over there. So we could still have the ellipses. The return didn't need to be the dot dot. I think that's perfectly fine. And that all goes in there, but notice that here we don't see the self.hello in the dictionary, and that's because hello wasn't created or wasn't defined at the top. And if we did want to have that, we'd have a hello up here like this, and it would be of type string, and maybe it would have a default value of hello over there, just like that. So, or hello world, or whatever that we wanted up here. But we could do, the point being that we could have whatever, like many other methods over here, and we would need to run that in some way. So there's just a couple of ways of basically doing some initialization. So we can actually have a data class. We can have our structure really conveniently. We don't need to do an initialization, but we do actually have this additional option that we can do some sort of instantiation without having to do the replication of the name equals name, self.name equals name, and self.age equals age, and so forth. So in summary, basically we get a lot of very nice functionality out of the box with these data classes, and I'll get rid of this little piece because we don't actually need it there. We've got the data class. We're able to create the attributes of it, or the fields in there, and we can also do some initializations, and we can from our initialization we can also reference other functions straight away and give ourselves additional functionality. So it's an extremely flexible tool, and there's actually other parts of it, so I'll probably make slightly more things about data classes. I'm going to remove the type dictionary, I'll probably make some videos on that, but I think the data classes are far more useful. And actually, one final thing that I did have here, which is data classes should become a keyword in Python, because basically they've really been adopted by the community, just because it's actually quite an amazing tool. It's very, very user friendly. It could be a bit more user friendly, and there could be some extra functionality, but it's certainly a great use thing in Python. And if you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button, hit the follow button, and all the other buttons. And even if you didn't find it useful, still hit the thumbs up button, like button, and follow button. And that's pretty much it. This video was about initializing a data class in Python.